Great.
No, I'm not nervous. I just forgot about the microphone. Thank you, though. Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments meeting together, our March 11 meeting. And I am running this meeting. Jill Gabler is not in town today, so I'm performing my duties as vice chair to run this meeting. So this meeting is called to order. And I can state that we have a quorum, so we can proceed. Do we have any new people at the table here needing to do introductions? Sorry? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm John Cater with the Federal Highway Administration for the Colorado office here. So,
okay, great. Since we do have somebody from the Federal Highways office here, how about if we just quickly go around, everybody introduce each other. Andy, if we could start with you and then proceed to your left. So,
sure. Andy Gunning with PPACG.
and I'm John Cater. I'm the Division Administrator with Federal Highway here in Colorado.
Irv Halter, I'm the commissioner for this area, for the Highway Commission.
Karen Rowe, RTD CDOT.
Mike Biondo, 21st Space Wing, Peterson Air Force Base.
Ron Jeffrey, Director of Staff, 50th Space Wing at Schriever Air Force Base.
John Graham, Mayor, Manitou Springs.
Don Wilson, Town of Monument.
Holly Williams, El Paso County Commissioner.
Turner Smith, Trustee, Rama.
Good morning, Norm Steen, Teller County Commissioner.
Andy Pico, Colorado Springs City Council.
Glant Havener, trustee, Town of Palmer Lake. Yolanda Avila, City Council member. Colorado Springs.
Stan Vanderwerf, El Paso County Commissioner.
Dick Elsner, Park County Commissioner.
Sharon Thompson, Fountain City Council.
Okay, I believe that is all that's at the table here. I thank you, everybody, for being at the meeting this morning. We are now completed with our introductions. I'd like to talk a little bit about a couple of things. As you may all know, that before we get into the agenda, as you all know, we got a notice from Sharon asking everybody to wear blue today. I'd like to thank everybody that's doing that. This is in memory of Gannon Stauk, who is the missing child from the southeast, and based, of course, on what we've seen from the arrests and so forth. It's with the belief that Gannon is no longer with us, but we are hoping that Gannon's body can be found and brought back to the family. I'd also would like to mention, and maybe some of you may not know, but Neil Levy, one of our members, the mayor of Manitou Springs, I'm sorry, I did that, did I? Yeah. Woodland Park, thank you for the correction, is not here with us today. He has started a course in treatment for cancer, so I'd like to extend our prayers to Neil. I called him yesterday and spoke with him, and Neil is one of the most positive people I have ever met, and he's a fighter, and he's going to work very hard at surviving his cancer. And we look forward to continuing to work with him. And he's told us that he told me that he's going to continue to work with PPACG when he can. So our prayers and so forth go out to Neil Levy. So at this point, I'd like then to go to the agenda. And before I ask for a motion, we have two emergency items that we would like to add to the agenda. This will be 7D. When we vote on the agenda, I'd like to add these two as part of the agenda, and then once we get to the action items, we'll discuss them in more detail. The first item, 7D, is permission for committees to participate and vote remotely under states of emergency. And then 7E will be a statement of support for the Stauk family, which we will ask Sharon to discuss. So with those two proposed additions, can I have a nomination for the agenda or any conversation, and possibly also people supporting the addition of those two?
I would move approval of the agenda along with the two emergency items, 7D and E.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, but do we have any comments before we vote? Are you good? Yeah. Okay, great. All right, thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second for the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously with the noted members absent. Let's go on to number 3, public comments, and we will open it up to the public for people to speak, but we'd like to start with Mr. John Carter from the Federal Highway Administration, and John Cater from the Federal Highway Administration, and the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. As I said, we're with the Federal Highway Administration, and just want to talk a little bit real briefly about what Federal Highway is and how we work with state and local governments, and then talk a little bit about some of the issues that we've been involved with PPACG here as well. First, I guess to start off the very beginning, Federal Highway, our charge is to deliver the Federal Aid Highway Program nationally. And in Colorado, my office does that. And the Federal Aid Program is a federally assisted, state-administered program. So it's unlike many other federal programs in that they're not direct grants to recipients by and large. The money comes to us through the state DOT and then to projects that have been selected by the state and local governments on to whatever those improvements might be. So they're not selected federally. It's a little different than many programs, and it's a collaborative process. And the goal, I'll be saying it repeatedly, is it's a collaborative process, state, federal, local. All three of us have parts to play. I have 3 members of my staff here. I want to just recognize Bill Haas, Aaron Busto, and Steve Miner. They're sitting in the row back here. And they're the ones they're probably the familiar faces you've seen who are here on a much more regular basis discussing the federal planning requirements and working with you to make sure things are running smoothly. Again, the key is we're looking for a proactive, collaborative approach. And one thing that's the worst thing for all concerned is if we have federal requirements and then somebody's going along, they think they know what they're doing, and you get right to trying to deliver the project, and they say, "Oh, hold on, there's this requirement, pull the string, and you can't do it." That's not in anybody's interest, and that's certainly not what we want. So our goal is to work with folks using federal money up front in an ongoing basis, so that as we work through the process, everybody understands what's going on, and things work seamlessly. Now, seamlessly is the ideal, right? But I think we get pretty close to that because I do think we're involved throughout the process, and it's not just, again, Federal Highway, but it's working with CDOT and the Region 2 staff as well as our folks. Bill, Aaron, and Stephen, they come periodically. They work with PPACG on the federal required products. So those are things like the TIP. The TIP was approved recently. The 2045 Regional Transportation Plan, again, that was approved in January, I believe, and the annual work program. So those are federally required documents that are developed collaboratively. So it's a joint process working together to get those put together that meet the regional needs, the desires here locally, as well as meet the federal requirements. One tool that we've been using now nationally for almost 30 years is something called certification reviews of a metropolitan planning organization, which is what PPACG is in federal parlance. And so we use those reviews to make sure that we understand the processes that are in place, to verify that what's going on meets federal requirements, but also to learn best practices and things we can share, and not only within Colorado, but even nationally, depending on what they might happen to be. And those are great tools, and it's one that's been around, like I say, for almost 30 years, but it's one that we use, and a lot of times something will come out, we'll learn something here that we can share with, maybe it's with Provo, Utah, a similar-sized area, or wherever it might happen to be, but somewhere else can pick up on something we're doing here. It's a good practice, and we can share it and use it elsewhere. So good tools. That review is coming up. The most recent one was completed in 2017, and the letter was issued in January of 2018, and so it's a 4-year cycle, so we're coming up on it again, and so during calendar year 2021, we'll be starting that process again and getting that certification going. The one thing I wanted to touch on a little bit here was air quality conformity. I have some good news on that front. I think there's good news. There's always a little bit of darkness to the cloud, but overall it's pretty good news. I think hopefully you're aware that you've been under a 20-year maintenance period for carbon monoxide, meaning that 20 years ago you met conformity, you met the national standards, and so for 20 years now you've been within that standard, so you've been good for 20 years. And so with that comes the end of the maintenance period. You're done. And that's great news. The challenge with that is that that's really never happened before around the country. So we're a little bit on the leading edge here as to some of the details to that. So some of the good news items: you don't have to address conformity anymore in the transportation plan or in the TIP. Now the challenge again is that the state SIP, the state implementation plan for air quality, needs to address that as well. So there's some details that need to be worked out there. I'll be working with the state agencies on that, but generally speaking, I think the bar will probably be simply being able to demonstrate that CO is not getting worse in the area, which is, with the current technologies, that should not be too big of a challenge. One thing that won't happen is that you will no longer get CMAQ funds from federal highways. So that's there'll no longer be a designation or a allocation. So there's always that downside, right? Nothing's perfect. But the good news is you don't need it for CO anymore. So that's good. And I don't want to say that you won't get in. There will be no CMAQ money spent here because CDOT does use some money statewide. So there will be some CMAQ money coming here for statewide initiatives. So there'll be some of that going on. Good news, you won't need to address air quality conformity in the transportation plan and the TIP, and then it won't have to come to us and FTA and EPA for approval. So one step of the process will be gone there. The effective date of the TIP no longer has to go to, it's the date you approve it as opposed to when we have to make a secondary approval on conformity. So again, more streamlining there. The cycle for the transportation plan is no longer a 4-year cycle, but a 5-year cycle. Now, you can still do it on a 4-year cycle if you choose, but federally, you only have to do it on a 5-year cycle if you're in attainment. So good news there. So lots of details, I think, that are progress and are beneficial, even though you don't get the CMAQ allocation. Final thing I want to mention, so I think good news mostly on the air quality front. And the final thing I want to mention federally is that this area has been very successful in applying for some of these national grant programs. And one thing that we've seen come along nationally over the last 5+ years is there's more and more money is going out nationally in these nationally competitive programs. And so in this region, we were successful with the infra money for the I-25 GAP project a few years ago, and then most recently the build money for the military access program or project, which is going to do improvements on Highway 94, South Academy, Charter Oak Ranch Road, and some improvements on I-25. So, when you're competing nationally and you're winning, that's a good sign. That means something good's happening here, and you've got a good case to make. So, glad to see your success there, and hope to see you continue to compete for those and be successful going forward. And so, with that, I think I'll close and appreciate the opportunity to be with you here, and look forward to the rest of the meeting. If you have any questions, please let me know.
All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Cater. I'd like to open up the floor for any questions, please. Norm?
Not a question, but just a thank you to John. We really can't overstate the importance of the partnership with our federal partners, our regional partners, and John, it's been a great pleasure working with you. Through STAC, we've met for many, many years, and your staff, always been a great pleasure to work with, and thanks for coming down today. Appreciate sharing good news with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments? And I have one, but I'll reserve mine till after everybody else has an opportunity. Okay, great. So I'd like to also express my appreciation, John, for coming down. It is really, really important that I think, as the Colorado Springs and El Paso County and the other public agencies within this organization, as we continue to grow, and we are doing that quite vigorously, it's important for us to kind of reset our relationships, because we're really kind of a big community now as opposed to kind of a smaller community that we've been accustomed to in the past. And there's a lot that we're doing here that's kind of on a bigger scale than what has taken place in the past. So first of all, my appreciation for your coming down, and you are invited to come back anytime. And if you feel there's any other folks from any federal agency that maybe has not afforded an opportunity to come down and visit us, we'd love to have that conversation with you and get them, invite them down here and get them to know our team here a little bit more. And that's just a little bit about us, our community growing and kind of becoming a bigger and more important place here. So,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. And I guess I'd like to thank, too, Andy and John and the staff here, too. It's been a great relationship with them and very positive, and so makes things easy. So,
okay, wonderful. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on your comment that we're continuing to grow, I spoke to a person in the construction end of things, and I said, be straight up with me. In the current situation, are you continuing to sell houses? And the answer was, we closed on 33 last week. So
Yeah, I think it's a great point to make. It's illustrative of the growth that's taking place here, and it's as a result of that, it's so important that we work on infrastructure, but also get infrastructure design right, because if we get it wrong, we'll create problems, right, for our communities. So that's something that's always very, very important. I can tell you there's some other interesting things going on here. Perhaps we're not that much different from other communities across the nation, but we certainly have it here. We have a fast-growing large city, Colorado Springs, but fast-growing smaller communities across our area. But the county is also growing a lot, and we have a lot of urban area in our county, and this is somewhat of a new concept, where counties have to deal with urban issues much more so than they've had to in the past. The preponderance of county issues have often been rural, but we now have, I think, a nationwide challenge about what I would call urban county development. So that's kind of an interesting concept to kind of, for us to pay attention to. And we definitely have that here, and I know we'll work on that as a team. So thank you very much. Any other comments before we move on?
I just want to thank John and his team as well. Aaron and Bill are down here regularly with our TAC and offer tremendous support. So we've got a fantastic relationship, so really, really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Great. Outstanding. All right. Given no further comments, let's move on to item 4, which are the consent items. I'm sorry. We have more comments? Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. I need to open up the floor for public comments. So please, come on up. And if you could come to the podium over here to my left. And there's a button on there for you to push for the mic to work.
Thank you very much. Deborah Stout-Meininger, community advocate, citizen scientist. I'm here today as a voice of calling for reasonable and logical people on a personal basis dealing with the coronavirus that we have going on. Obviously, from what's happened in China, when we did find out about it, with the 2 doctors who were the whistleblowers and the 1 journalist who disappeared and the 2 doctors who died after they made it out to the public to tell everybody what was going on in China, it's obvious that we were not meant to know as quickly as we were about this virus and what was happening with it in China. That's sad but true. It's just another example of China's predatory business practices. The fact that it was made to put everybody into a frenzy, and even intelligence services, here in the United States saying, oh, there's no cure for it. Yeah, there is. If you go to a website called pharmaceutical-technology.com, it covers all the companies that have been for months working on the vaccines as well as the antiviral setups for this virus. And once they're saying that the Chinese are saying that they've been doing trials that were going on long before they had let the public know or admitted that they did have this virus loose. The fact that the city that it started in, the city of Wuhan, according to some sources in the newspapers, the intelligence community says that that was out of a lab. And it's funny how many viruses have escaped in China to really make life miserable in the world we are. But every time that they come up, China seems to have it, at the ready that they have the cure for it. What I didn't know up until last September is China produces almost all of our pharmaceuticals as well as our vaccines. That really needs to change because that gives them a power over us and opportunities to dent our security measures and our military. That gives them too much power to do that. It's bad enough that they're doing it to the people, the private citizens. We're always a target for predatory business practices all over the world. But if it puts our military at risk because they are our only source that we're using, that's bad. Now, CDC had to already replace all of the test kits because the ones they got from China were faulty. So, in this website, it has a list of the vaccines and drugs in the pipeline for COVID-19. And the first COVID-19 in China they have been running it in clinical trials already. And by the end of April, according to China, they're going to have the vaccine available. Wow, something that takes 12 to 18 months.
Deborah, I just wanted to let you know, my apologies, I failed to inform you that we normally restrict comments to 3 minutes, just like we do in my boards.
Yes.
So if you might proceed towards closing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, yes. And so if you go to those websites, it's in a lot of the newspapers, but it's hard to find it. This website had a list of all of those companies that are working on it. Most of them are Chinese run and owned. As I said, we do need to change that particular scenario that puts us at risk constantly. But there's a lot of information out there, common sense way to handling it on a personal basis. And I think those lists of what you should and shouldn't do, including the things about the masks, people need more access to. And that's one of the things I'm going to put out to the local governments. And hopefully they'll share it with the community as well, who don't have access to all the different newspapers and stories. But it's not uncurable, and it is a predatory business practice for China, again, on us. And I just hope people can calm down and do things logically and not just go hog wild or pick on people. There's Chinese who have spent their lives, gave their lives up to tell us that this is going on. And I personally appreciate the sacrifice they made for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak? Yes, please, come on up.
Yes. So good morning. It's Gail Nels, CEO with Invita, and I'm here for a positive thank you information for the board about how you have helped us grow and support your community, our community. There we go. So Invita used to be called AMBACAB, and we've been in the community since 1971 supporting people with transportation in this area. I've been at the helm for about 8 years, and we've grown significantly, and there's a little chart on the graph on the bottom with the hockey stick curve that talks about we were like a $500,000 organization, now $5 million to support our community. And our mission is to support the independent living, and we like to see ourselves as innovators in the transportation and the home care fields. We are now in 7 counties, and what Jermaine here is, of course, El Paso, Teller, and Park. I want to say thank you very much for the funds that have gone into helping Invita serve our Callahan and our Yoder neighbors. We've been out in Callahan since October of 18, and we have now a steady group of people that we are serving, bringing people in from Callahan into the Walmart in Falcon and into some of the medical facilities, and of course tying into the sub-hub up on Voyager. And so people like stories, and the one I like is the one woman who was deaf and was texting someone on our staff. And so she is now able to get rides in from Callahan, and she goes to the Y with Silver Sneakers. And so then she brought along her husband, who's now also at Silver Sneakers. And she has also, I think, brought along a 1-month ladies' trip into the Ark and the Goodwill. So that's how we are supporting the community out there. And you will see our county commissioners supporting when we launched it with CDOT's Division of Transit and Rail, David Cussinger. I was flattered to be invited to an FTA panel a couple weeks ago with Kay Jane Williams as the moderator, and I was on the dais with Dallas Transportation and Shreveport Transportation. And here's Invita from Colorado Springs talking about our innovation. But I did like to show them this slide about the sheriff's office and the town hall out in rural El Paso County to see what it looks like and the difference that we make in people's lives. And the fellow from Dallas he said he didn't want to have any slides because it's hard to compete with Pikes Peak and transportation out there. I said, yeah, Dallas. But I think we've been integrated into the community. We've been asked to participate in the Parade of Lights out in Callahan and even shuttle in the El Paso County Fair. And we feel that we are now really supporting the community and have integrated. We've also started a trip out to a couple of runs out to Yoder end of January and working with the school systems because we now have a route on Fridays when the school is out to help those students get in and get services that they need. So thank you. And I want to say we listened to the community. Part of why we started the Callahan was after 5 years of sitting around tables like this and not getting any result, we decided to just apply for grants. And astoundingly, we got federal, state, and local funding. And so thank you for the Community Development Block Grant and CDOT and the feds to make this possible at 5311. But as we were talking, and you people around this table understand what people say and what they do are two different things. So we went out and started with a route, and then within 6 months we changed the route to more accommodate what people's needs are. And so this shows the times and schedules for not only Callahan but now Yoder, and we will be modifying that over time. Probably the biggest news was when we were awarded, Envita was awarded that $250,000 grant from the FTA May of 18, and how we are servicing and working with our partners up in Teller to support behavioral health and to people facing suicide, opioids, and alcoholism, and other behavioral health issues. But we're working with our Cripple Creek partners and the emergency medical people so we can help divert those kinds of expensive trips into less expensive and more appropriate transportation. And this is what we were talking about at the FTA panel. But we're looking to make it replicable and scalable around the nation, and so it is considered an innovation grant. I think what's interesting is the keystone for these grants that Envita's gotten over this past year was the FTA grant. But we have blended or braided in other funds from foundations and other FTA funds to create over a bucket of over $750,000 to support our community. And what this means is from behavioral health, how to line it up, how to gather the data before, pre and post. So we are actually informing policy that can be replicated across the nation. And we've been asked to go into to support monuments, volunteer program in transportation. I think we have well-minded people that want to help their community, and then they realize how hard or how difficult or how demanding transportation is, and so we're looking at more volunteer. And I'm actually hoping to learn a lot from that and perhaps replicating it up into Park, and also working on some federal legislation on how to support more volunteer reimbursement. So we'll be working on that with the Community Transportation Association of America at the federal level as well. And Teller and Park, these are the challenges, and it's not unique to Colorado, but nationwide. So we'll be looking at how we can work better with our partners. But I wanted to kind of close a little bit on this slide. Yes, sir.
Just if you might, please.
That we see that nonprofits are a integral part of supporting our community, that there's a public-private partnership, and that we are the innovators in many respects. So thank you for supporting us. It was a small agency, but we think we're doing big things to support our community. So thank you. Any questions?
Yes, go ahead.
Not a question, more of a compliment and everything. I'm from Rama, as you know. Mm-hmm. Your schedule is posted in the Rama post office. So Obviously, if people can get from Rainbow over to Callahan, they have full access to your services. The word on the street is that your drivers are resourceful, empathetic, and deliver more than the bare minimum by far.
Yes.
They're well thought of, and a credit to your agency. So I know I'm only telling you what you already know, but I thought I would share with the rest of the room what the viewpoint is from eastern Colorado, eastern El Paso County.
Thank you. I think we do hire excellent people, and they are a credit to our community. Thank you very much for your comment. I'll take that back to them. It means a lot.
And Yolanda, you have some comments?
I do. Gail, thank you for that presentation. You've come a long way, baby.
Oh, yes.
I was on the board when it was a $500,000 budget, and there were times that we didn't know how we were going to make that payroll and how we were going to make things happen. But under your leadership, wow, $5 million now. And the services that you've provided not only to Colorado Springs and Fountain and the local areas, now it's really expanded to several other counties. So kudos to you for an amazing job, for the team. And this is what it's all about, that private, nonprofit, and government working together.
Thank you. I will accept that compliment.
Okay. Any other comments? I would also like to express my appreciation for what NVIDIA is doing and what you're doing, Gail, as well. That last chart that you have up there, it's so important to really pay attention to this, the public agency functions that we can do well, but also what private industry, what nonprofits can do for our communities. And when we partner together and work together, we get success. And you are an example of that. And I appreciate what you're doing in helping a lot of citizens in our counties. It's really, really outstanding. So, again, thank you very, very much. And appreciate you coming here and giving us an update as well.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Is there anybody else wishing to provide any public comments? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead then to item number 4, the consent items. We have 4 items on the agenda, and I will entertain a motion and a second if it's possible.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions, discussions, or recommended changes to the minutes or any of the other documents at this point that someone would like to bring up? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that's no nays, so that passes unanimously with the noted folks absent. Let's go now to item number 5, which is the public hearing for the TIP draft, and if we could go ahead and get started with that, that would be great.
I think Catherine's going to present that, and we'll see if there is any public comment related to our draft tip. Are you going to? I'm sorry.
Would you like me to open up the public hearing?
Sure. I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to say beforehand, but it's a public hearing item. We can open it up for public comment on our draft tip.
Okay, very good. So let's go ahead and open this up for public comments. If does anybody from the public have any comments with regard to this tip, this draft tip? Okay, I'm sorry. Is there? No? Okay. Hearing none, why don't you just come on up to the podium and chat for a few minutes about this and let us know what the latest and greatest is.
Good morning. Catherine Wenger, Senior Transportation Planner, PPACG. So as the designated MPO, we are required to have a 4-year short-range transportation improvement program, or the TIP, as John Cater was talking about before. And so as the TIP is our short-range plan that implements our region's long-range plan, and all surface transportation projects that are requiring or using federal funds have to be listed in this plan. And as in our region, we actually update the plan every 2 years. It's only required to be updated every 4, but we like to keep our projects, our lists more up to date, so we do it every 2 years. So over the last about 6 months or so, we've been working to develop the new TIP draft, which is our fiscal year 21 through 24. Our current one is 2019 through 2022. And so since the last 2 years overlap, the new one coming in, we rolled forward the last 2 years of the TIP of the current one, and then did a call for projects for the last 2 years for this new draft. And so what you're seeing or the links provided are the draft documents to the updated document, and then the proposed lists of projects that are for federal funds in the next 4 years, or starting in 2021, which is actually fiscal year, so it starts July of 2020, so it's coming up soon. So what you have here is a list of, or is the draft tip, I'm getting ahead of myself. So you have the draft tip, and then we also received public comments. And so the public comments period was held for 30 days, and we received the comments that are in your attached link, and we provided those to TAC and CAC as well. And so each committee gets 30 days with that draft of the comments to see if we want to make any changes or make any updates to the document based on those public comments. Thus far, we haven't received any comments to change the draft, just one from Mountain Metro Transit to say they would like our response to the public to be slightly changed, just to say that we do a full public comment outreach during TAC, CAC, and other public outreach events to discuss creating these lists. And so it was just a more detailed response that they'd like for us to provide to the public. So other than that, we haven't had no changes. And so with that, we have provided you with the suggested comments, and next month, we will be bringing it back for final approval, and the document would then go into effect July 1 of 2020.
Are there any comments from the board? And I have one. I'll just reserve it in case anybody else does. Yes, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a common misunderstanding is this is for state and federal projects only. If you have a project in your neighborhood that's in the city limits, this is not on that list. So don't be discouraged. This is federal and state only. Catherine, just for the benefit of the group, could you describe how big the TIP is, approximate number of projects, and approximately the total number of dollars are engaged for the 4 years?
Sure. So each year we're allocated about $7.5 million in federal funds, and that's in an STP Metro program or Surface Transportation Program, and then about $500,000 in Transportation Alternatives Program or TAP funds, and those are for bike or pedestrian projects. And so we have about $8 million each year, and depending on the year, based on how the projects have been programmed, we probably have about 3 or 4 or possibly 5, depending on the year, projects sitting in each year, and that's just in our regional program. There's also this document also lists the state projects that are federally funded and or regionally significant and state funded in our TIP. So you'll also see state projects in there that are within our region, or which is TPR1. So that's just the MPO region, and not the full 3 counties. It's just the MPO.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other comments? So for those of you that have taken a look, there is a page in the package that talks about comments that you had received previously through other means, and we didn't have any comments here at this hearing, but you do have some here from an online submission form, one from an email, open house, or actually a couple from an email. And so there's a few in here, and what you have in here is you have the comment and then you have the staff response. In some of these cases, you actually modified the TIP based on the comments, and in other cases, they were not relevant to the TIP, but you passed them on to the appropriate public agencies that maybe would have some authority to address those kinds of items. But I think that was very thoughtful, and I'll just maybe identify one. I think it was in the very first comment listed here. A comment was made that the review criteria in Appendix F was a little difficult to follow, and so you actually worked on updating, I believe, the website to produce some additional clarity. So without having to go through it and spend the time doing that, there were public comments, and then there was a PPACG response to those comments, and those are listed here in the package. So I thought that was really good. So, okay. Are there any other comments then at this point? All right, so we did open and close the public hearing here. We received no comments from here, but we have addressed the comments that were provided previously. I think that's all we have to do on this item at this point. Is that correct? Okay. Okay, and that's right. Next month, we will come back and we will hear this again, and that will be up for a vote for this board. So be ready for that. If you have any other comments from the board members here that you wish to provide to PPACG, please do that. I would recommend you do that before next week's board meeting, or next month's board meeting, so that that'll give the staff an opportunity to go through those and maybe make some changes. Okay, thank you. All right, appreciate it. Let's go on then to the information items. Item 6A, and this is the CDOT 10-year pipeline project prioritization.
Good morning. Shane Ferguson with CDOT, North Program Engineer. So on Agenda 6A, Attachment 1 and Attachment 2, we have the 5 to 10-year pipeline projects listed, both capital and transit. And so to give you a little bit of history, if you guys remember back in October, we developed a list for Senate Bill 267 of capital projects. And on that list, we identified our prioritization as to what would we want to see funded first through 6 if there were fundings, if funding was to become available to the region. Senate Bill 267 was able to fund portions of 4 of our projects, capital projects within this list on Attachment 2. Research Interchange, I-25 and 94 Safety Improvement, or the Build Grant Project, Ramp Metering Phase 2, and Fillmore to Garden the Gods, the auxiliary lanes and median widening. 2 of the projects that were not funded were the next 2, which is the Powers Boulevard, State Highway 21, and Airport Interchange, and the US 24 East widening from Garrett to Woodman Road. For this next pipeline set of projects, what we've identified is if there were fundings to become available between years 5 and 10, what would our prioritization of projects be within this community? These projects are part of the long-range plan, and so they're identified in long-range plan as part of the corridor projects. But we wanted to go ahead and identify specifically what improvements, what interchange improvements or projects would we want to identify and pursue for funding. We were constrained with about $160 million for this effort. And so on the capital projects, we identified and we carried forward the 2 unfunded projects, Airport and Powers Interchange, as well as the US 24 East widening from Garrett to Woodman Road. We wanted to include a project on I-25, and so through our community. And so moving forward with our EA that was completed in 2004, we segmented it into about 3 different sections, which the next phase for I-25 on that EA is HOV lanes, a 4th lane through the community. I will remind or talk about a little bit on the HOV lanes. That is a managed lane. I think through our HTPE group, when we reevaluate a project, part of that reevaluation of the project will be looking at the managed lane solution that we have listed. And then the 4th project listed is US 24 West over Ridge Road. That is an overpass, basically from Red Rocks Open Space Canyon, north and south. And one thing I'll note for these 4 listed projects, they are identified in our planning documents, major corridors within this community, so Powers, I-25, 24 East and West. So really looking at being sure that we capture our planning documents and moving those efforts forward. And as well, these are high-level estimates. These are planning-level estimates. And so obviously, as we get into the details of the project, it could increase cost, it may decrease, but just want to be sure that we're transparent with that effort. Transit list, which is the attachment 1, that was working with our Mountain Metro here in this community. And I'll definitely have to, if you have questions on Mountain Metro projects, I may have to defer some of those. Those are definitely more details that the Mountain Metro group would be able to answer for us. And I can have Brian join us next time. This is an informational, and so next time around it would be, I believe, for an action item. So at that point, questions?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Turner Smith from Town of Raymond.
Yes, sir.
On the US 24 east widening from Garrett Road to Woodman Road,
Yes.
I thought that was going to be covered with faster funds, no?
No, sir. There may be a specific project that you're referring to, but the addition of lanes is not covered at this time.
Okay.
I think it's the, that
Peston.
intersection, what's it called? I want to say Erdman, but that's not it. 24 and
Talking about Judge Orr?
Judge Ord, yeah. I think that one's covered on
Gotcha.
faster safety.
Okay.
Yeah, but not the widening.
Okay.
This is 46 million. We don't quite have that much safety money. But I think Judge Orr is covered under faster safety, or we're going to be able to do it.
Right. We are
can verify
currently
that.
pursuing a faster grant for that project, Judge Orr intersection.
TBD, you have no idea when that money might rain from heaven.
That is correct. That is manna from heaven.
Well,
yes, sir. So, yeah, that does need to be noted that these projects are not funded, but we want to position ourselves. We want to position ourselves in case we do have another Senate Bill 267 come about or a transportation bill, that type of scenario.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments? I just want to thank you actually for continuing to hold on to this planning document and for us to continue to use it. I think that's really important. It'll allow us to be well prepared the next time we may encounter something like a follow-on to 267 or maybe in addition to 267. That would really be useful. So I do encourage everybody on the board here to kind of continue to think our way through this and make sure that we do have our priorities as we see it set well. I do know that these top priorities that are on the unfunded side, those are all important projects. And my last comment is it's just amazing to me that a single interchange like the airport interchange is $45 million. That's just astronomical numbers when I think about it, you know. So I wish it were less. If you can find anything innovative to make it less, we'd love to hear it.
Yes, sir.
So, okay. Any other remaining comments on this? Otherwise, we'll move to the next item. Okay, hearing none. 6B, Unified Planning Work Program. And thank you, sir.
Morning, Catherine Wenger, Senior Transportation Planner. So as the MPO, we also have a requirement to do a Unified Planning Work Program, and this is a document that specifies planning activities that will occur in our MPO region over the next, for this document, it's 2 years. The current one that we have adopted is our federal fiscal year 2020 and 2021, which started back in October of last year. And so since we do a new document every 2 years, we occasionally do a mid-year update and the mid-cycle update in between years just to make sure that we have our budgets in line with what we're actually spending, any roll forwards we might have had from the previous year, or if we have any changes to major activities that we'll be doing in the next year. And so since we do actually have a new employee that started in the last year, and we've shifted from a lot of focus on long-range plan because it was adopted, thank you, and then now we're moving into other activities. And so we are proposing a few amendments to the currently adopted UPWP. There's no major revisions. There's just some additions to a safety campaign, a tri-county study, and then some budget changes to shift the money away from the long-range plan, and then some additions from our Federal Transit Administration partners that wanted us to include some more information on public transit. And so those are the updates you'll see in the attachment. And this month it would be for information item. We actually did receive a little bit more updates from our CDOT partners regarding our roll forwards, so we're actually probably not going to bring it back to you for action next month because we're going to reconcile with those numbers, but then you'll see it probably back in May for a potential adoption, or if you don't feel comfortable with it, then we can do it in June. So you'll be seeing that in a couple of months for any major changes or any small changes that we have for that.
Okay, great. Are there any comments? Well, first of all, I might have interrupted if you were not finished.
No, sorry.
Okay, very good. Are there any other comments with regard to the documentation here or what was stated at the podium? And the documentation you have here, the items identified in red, is that represents an update?
Oh, yes, correct.
Yeah.
So in the table, you see the original document items, and then on the right, you see the revised, and the red, as you say, is what we've added or reduced from or taken away from it.
Okay, very good. So hearing no comments, thank you very much. Appreciate the update. Let's go on to 6C, our air quality update.
Good morning, members of the board, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Samantha Bailey. I'm the environmental planner here at PPACG. I'd like to bring to your attention 4 components of this air quality update, beginning with the draft air quality report. Within your board packet, you can find a copy of this draft air quality report that was requested from members of the board late last year. The Air Quality Technical Committee, Department of Public Health and Environment, and PPACG developed an air quality data and trends report. The draft report provides data analysis and pollution impacts on all 6 criteria pollutants of the Clean Air Act, specifically to the Pikes Peak region, from 2013 to 2019. Data has been verified by the Department of Public Health and Environment since they are the owners of the air monitors within our region. The report is designed for the general public, so you'll notice this report has a lot of visuals, white space, and limited content with a high school level readability score. Overall, the Pikes Peak region has seen a significant decrease in the majority of criteria pollutants and remains well below the federal standard. Ozone, as we know, is the pollutant of concern, coming close to the federal standard in our region. Ozone-specific publications and projects will be developed in the upcoming months to provide further details on ozone pollution reduction efforts to our communities. Once this report is finalized, PPACG will distribute the report to our partners and to the general public. I'll also send content and graphics from this report for our social media and for other outreach materials as well. What I'd like from you is if you have any questions or feedback on this report before finalizing it and distributing it out to the communities.
Are there any comments or questions? Yes, go ahead. Norm.
Just a question. Did you ever connect with Representative from Teller County? We talked about this several months ago for air quality.
I don't believe I have. I can take that information, though, and get that to the person, though.
Let me if you could provide some context.
Okay.
We've talked about this, I think, a number of times now. So just want to make sure you're getting input from a little farther west in the region. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Any other questions? All right, and in a conversation a couple of days ago with Andy, you had mentioned to me possibly the need for some conversation from this board with regard to a little bit of a restructure of this.
Oh, and that's the next part of the presentation.
Is that the next part of the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I guess I'm a lead into that then. So go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So the next component I would like to bring to your attention is the Air Quality Technical Committee and proposing a restructure of committee membership. The role of the Air Quality Technical Committee, or AQTC, is to advise PPACG on current and emerging issues affecting the air quality of our region. AQTC plans to work diligently this year to ensure that the region remains in compliance with the Clean Air Act by remaining below the ozone standard. The goals of this committee include researching the potential impacts of non-attainment designation, as well as working with stakeholders to inform and implement proactive measures. To successfully accomplish this goal, I'd like to propose a committee restructure to extend membership to ensure we have accurate jurisdictional representation, as well as including stakeholders who may be affected by the non-attainment designation. This potential membership extends beyond the committee bylaws, so a revision will be necessary. Currently, the membership on our bylaws include one representative from each PPACG member of governments, and then 2 representatives from the City of Colorado Springs and El Paso County, as well as ex officio members including our military installation and PPACG staff. Since I've joined PPACG, we've had a number of AQTC members committed to attending regular meetings, including folks like El Paso County Public Health, Fort Carson, and the City of Colorado Springs. But since the impacts of non-attainment not only affect government organizations, but businesses and public constituents, I would like to recommend the following groups to extend an invitation to join AQTC. Enlarging our jurisdictional representation, with 2 from the City of Colorado Springs and El Paso County, Colorado Springs Utilities, Mountain Metro Transit, and at-large positions including environmental groups, Chamber of Commerce and Business Organization, local universities, neighborhood associations, wildfire and emergency management representatives, and then, of course, recommendations from the boards if you have anything extending beyond your jurisdiction. Members from these organizations should attend if they have knowledge of air quality, if they have the capacity to partner in air pollution reduction efforts, or their work lives could be impacted by the non-attainment designation in the future. Ideally, membership would include people of influence or champions for air quality so we can implement effective measures to remain in compliance. With this in mind, my ask from you is to provide feedback on my proposed AQTC structure, suggestions on potential membership invites, and guidance on how you would like me to proceed with committee bylaws.
Okay, great. So at this point, this is not going forward with a vote, but we'd like to have a dialogue, if I understand correctly, and see what the board thinks. Go ahead, Andy.
That's correct. We would bring back a draft update to the bylaws at a subsequent meeting once we get some. We wanted some preliminary direction, and we haven't actually reached out to all the suggested organizations on the list that Samantha just mentioned. For instance, I don't know if the Chamber EDC has capacity or interest to serve on the committee, but we think, given where we are with ozone especially, and the need to look at proactive strategies and voluntary control measures, that groups like that and MMT and others really should be invited to be at the table to help us structure what our approach around ozone especially is going to be. So this is up for preliminary discussion, direction. We're looking for feedback, and then we'll start it through the normal committee process for an actual change to the bylaws.
And if I might just ask, is this proposed additions on the ex officio side, or is this voting, or what is this?
Well, and that's up for discussion and direction. I think we set up the Air Quality Committee a number of years ago. Mr. Cater alluded to we had issues with carbon monoxide, started 20 years ago, and I think we put this committee in place some time ago, and it kind of follows the structure of a lot of other committees we have, but this one's a little bit unique. We'd like to find people that have unique interest and expertise around air quality or around the control measures that we might need to pursue as a region. So that was part of the thinking with putting forward the ex officio members as well. Samantha mentioned local universities, if they have a public health component or environmental sciences component that can feed into our air quality planning. We'd like to get folks like that around the table.
Okay, great. Any comments? Yes, Andy.
Yeah, you were proposing a pretty wide swath to adding people in there, and I would say that kind of falls into asking people to show up for public comment, given the fairly large list that you have. I'm kind of uncomfortable extending voting membership to such a broad group. They can always come, and perhaps ex officio wouldn't have necessarily too much concern about, but casting such a wide net, I think you're going to have a somewhat unworkable, and you're going to have the potential for some activism as opposed to some serious discussion.
Any other comments? Thank you, Andy. Oh, yes. Sharon.
Any further.
Sorry, Sharon.
Trying to get in your line of sight. My arm's too
short. I need
short.
to be looking to my left.
Thank you for poking him. I actually had the same concern as and Mr. Pico brought up over there. Some of the, especially with the at-large positions, I wanted, if we are going to include them as ex officio members, I would like to see, especially when it comes to environmental groups, limited, because I don't want to see them taking all 6 positions. And I can see the importance of the local universities being in charge and the wildlife people. I did send a text to our city staff asking why we wouldn't have somebody here, so maybe we can get a little bit more activism from us in that terms of finding out why we aren't having someone here. But I agree with Andy, ex officio, but not necessarily voting members, and it is an open meeting to anyone in the public, so they're already invited.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm with Andy and Sharon. That's all I needed to say. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? So I guess it's, notwithstanding any other comments that might provide a different point of view, it sounds like we have an interest in maybe expanding the board, but only on the ex officio side. I think I heard that for sure. And then perhaps some careful or thoughtful thinking with regard to how many we add and what kind of opportunities. I'd say maybe, at least in part, that would include making sure that we have a broad swath of different types of organizations so that it doesn't get hung up on any one particular group. So maybe a little bit of a design consideration for the board's consideration on that point would be useful. Was there another hand raised, another comment? Go ahead, Norm.
Just kind of thinking here, how do we engage our commercial sector? People who, I mean, I'm not that familiar with who our industry is in the lower Pikes Peak region, but I'm wondering how would we engage them? Through the chamber, through EDC?
That was my thinking, was having business organizations come on behalf of commercial industry.
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, we were picking up the chamber and EDC as part of those ex officios, or in that broader group, and I think that's where we pick them up. But that doesn't necessarily put them as a voting member all the time, and that's kind of my concern is we're going to start stacking too many people on there. I think there was also the suggestion to add CSU, or to be specific, Colorado Springs Utilities as opposed to Colorado State University. So we can pick these people up, but let's be careful about how many we put on there and who they are. And I am stealing that lower comment there. The lower elevation, yeah.
And I think I would, myself, I would agree with one of these ex officio members certainly needs to be the chamber, because they are a great way to represent the business community. And I would also say, I'd say in trying to make sure we have a broad swath, maybe one of the members could be an environmental group so that we are not excluding that point of view in the conversation. And then we can maybe think about the other points of view as well. Because I think it's important, my sense of it is, it's important to really get these points of view from a broad variety of types of groups within the community so that they have an opportunity to have a say in the meeting.
Maybe just suggest our freight carriers, our trucking companies who are based, have hubs here in Colorado Springs.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other comments? And I guess I'll need to ask Andy and the team, do you feel you have enough guidance to go forward, or do you need a little more, you need us to work a little bit more on this for you?
I think this is good. We can put some guardrails around this and maybe define things a little bit better and call out that perhaps some of these at-larges would actually just be ex officio, advisory to the work that we're going to do. So Samantha and I can noodle on this a little bit more, and we can bring something back next month and then go from there.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any objection to that path going forward from the board? Okay. I'm not hearing any objections, so let's go ahead. Thank you very much for the update. Oh, you have a little bit more.
Updates.
Please go
Sorry
forward.
about
that.
that.
Forward.
I just want to make you aware of PPACG in January of 2020. We committed to the voluntary Ozone Advanced Program coordinated by the Environmental Protection Agency. This program requires a recommitment letter every 5 years, but because it is voluntary, we have a lot of flexibility in our participation with the advanced program. The advanced program promotes local actions in attainment areas, such as ourselves, to reduce ozone pollution to help those areas maintain the standards of the Clean Air Act. The Pikes Peak region is the first in Colorado to participate in this program, so we're going to be a statewide leader in participating in the advanced program. All that's required to EPA is an annual report of the efforts we're conducting to lower ozone. This includes PPACG's education and outreach efforts for ozone, non-attainment policy research that we're conducting, and community improvement projects. Participating in this program makes sense since we were already doing these efforts before participating in this program. And with collaborating with EPA, we get a lot of benefits by doing this. It provides a direct partnership with EPA, so they're already aware at the federal level the efforts that we're doing to reduce ozone. Because of this direct partnership, it can better position their region with a potentially lower non-attainment classification if we do go on to non-attainment. We'll receive participant-specific funding and technical assistance opportunities for ozone reduction efforts, so we'll have some funding to promote ozone reduction. as well as establishing a partnership with other council of governments and communities throughout the country that are participating in the Ozone Advanced program to understand effective measures that others are doing to reduce ozone. So just wanted to let you be aware of that. And there's an attachment in your packet as well of our commitment letter to EPA.
Go ahead, Andy.
In full support, but I thought it's worth a comment here, because that was the first that I heard today. The first one was, we're the first region to graduate from maintenance on carbon monoxide, and we're the first region now to play in this particular arena for the Ozone Advance. So, I mean, we do pay attention to this.
Yep.
I concur.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Andy. Any other comments? Okay, I think you have one more item, right?
Yep, one more item, just real quickly. PPACG, along with our state and federal partners, will be celebrating Air Quality Awareness Week this year on May 4th through the 8th. The theme this year is Better Air, Better Health. The goal is to promote events that increase air quality awareness and the effects of air quality on health. Each day of the week will focus on a variety of different topics like wildfires and asthma. In the next month, I'll be reaching out to our partners for more air quality education and outreach opportunities. And we'll be participating in Awareness Week in a variety of ways, like posting on our social media, developing air quality information publications, and assisting our partners with outreach projects. I'd like to bring to you in April a proclamation to the board to sign to celebrate Air Quality Awareness Week throughout the region. And if you or your organization or if your jurisdiction would like to celebrate Air Quality Awareness Week, please let me know. I'm more than willing to help.
Are you going to have a press release that we can send out to local?
Yes.
Yes.
And just to expand on that a little bit, in case you didn't hear, the comment from up here at the front table was, are we going to have a press release? And I think that would be an excellent idea. That'll also, I'll also recommend maybe sending out the press release in draft to the board members here, because each of our own public agencies might want to take some time to maybe go forward with something they would like to do with regard to this Air Quality Awareness Week, but to see that press release from PPACG, it's just, a set of recommended words maybe, and then that would allow the possibility for a little bit more coordination amongst all of us, because we'll see what PPACG intends on bringing out. So if we could do that, I think that'd be great.
Sure, happy to. Yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned this or not, but we shot a bunch of videos last year as well, and I think we're looking at weaving those into Air Quality Awareness Week as well. So, be on the lookout for those, but certainly we'll provide a draft of the press release.
And I appreciate Andy's comment about a couple of firsts here, and both of them are in environmental areas. And, of course, I think it's pretty awesome that we have Samantha working for us, because she is an environmental planner. So we work these issues, don't we?
Yeah.
So appreciate the work that Samantha does on behalf of the board members.
And if I could just give one more shout out, she didn't mention this. We had a really good air quality technical committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we dialed in our counterparts from the Austin, Texas region. They're not in non-attainment. They attain the ozone standard currently, but they did a cost-benefit analysis, economic impact analysis of what it would cost the region if they did go into ozone non-attainment, and it was startling. They are saving how many billions by staying out?
By staying out of attainment, they estimated $21 to $46 billion over 20 years.
Yeah, thus the need that we really want to stay proactive. That's why we signed up for the Ozone Advanced program with EPA. That's why we want to get the right structure for the Air Quality Technical Committee, and we've gotten general direction from the board before that we really need to be proactive, within reason, but do what we can to keep attaining the standard. So we've gotten some really good advice from other partners around the country. So appreciate Samantha setting that up.
Okay, Councilwoman, we have a question.
I have a question. I'm not sure if this is the correct place to put it, so if it isn't, just file it away. Last year we had some discussion on the alerts we were getting on our phones in regards to air quality, and we found out that most of the alerts really were having to do with the air quality in Denver, even though it was alerting down in this area. And we had asked that we could have a separate alert for this area so that people weren't readjusting their lives and the schools weren't readjusting their things that they're doing if the ozone alert is really coming out in the Denver area. I'm not sure if this is the correct place for that question, but we're talking about air. So is there any movement forward on that, since we are coming into that season of when those alerts will be coming out, mostly as soon as we starts heating up around here?
I think Councilmember Pico might have at least a partial response
Okay.
to that.
I've had ongoing discussions with CHPE on that particular issue, and they are shifting in that, so they will have regionally specific alerts, so that we won't be alerted for Denver and Fort Collins, we will be alerted for Colorado Springs and Pueblo. So
Right.
now that's their promise. They haven't executed it yet, so we'll see what happens when the summer comes in. But they are moving in that direction to make sure that the alerts are regionally tailored and appropriate.
Great. Do you communicate with them regularly, so if you get to a point where they can tell you that that will be in effect, that you'll be able to share that with the board?
I don't know how regularly that has been, but
Okay.
regularly,
Maybe-
irregular communications, but I
Sure.
will.
But
I'll,
maybe-
but yeah, we can.
maybe we could ask,
Yeah,
the
we can
PPACG
follow up
team
on
to
that,
do that.
and we'll get an update.
Yeah, Samantha's in regular touch with them, so we can find out where that stands. Yep.
Outstanding. Okay, any other questions on our air quality update? And thank you for the update. Several items in there. Yeah. All right.
Thank you very much.
Yep, hearing none. Let's go ahead then to the action items, and the first one is 7A, our TIP Amendment 13.
Catherine Wenger, PPACG. So as I mentioned before, as the MPO, we are required to have our Transportation Improvement Program, and our currently adopted program is our 2019 through 2022, and every once in a while we do have to amend or adjust our document based on new projects or adjustments to budgets. And so we have received a request from the Colorado Department of Transportation, Colorado Springs, and Colorado Springs MMT to adjust our current TIP. The requests are summarized in the table that you have in your agenda item. The Colorado Department of Transportation is the first line item, and that's to add state water quality funds to the I-25 and State Highway 21 stormwater basin construction phase. That's part of the I-25 interchange, I-25 and 21 are Powers interchange project that's going on with Copper Ridge, and that's to add the state funds to that to update the total budget to make it current. And then the next three items you see in the table are requests from the City of Colorado Springs and MMT to swap fund sources between three projects. No projects are gaining any more money or losing any funds. It's just to ensure that we spend our CMAQ funds by the end of this fiscal year, which is by June. And so since one of the projects, Route 8, is ready to go and should be obligating the funds by, I believe, May, we'll make sure that we get to spend those funds and that they don't go back into the general pool. And so that's what you see here is to move the CMAQ from the other two projects into Route 8, and then we move SCP Metro or TAP funds into the other ones, just to make sure each project doesn't have multiple types of fund sources, but all of it, all the funds stay the same, so no projects are losing out on any money. And with that, I can take any questions.
Any questions? No? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, and I know that the staff's recommendation is motion to approve amendment number 13, but of course we can make other motions to disapprove it or to have the staff go back and work on something if we have any concerns. Okay, that is moved and seconded for approval. So any last remaining comments or questions at this point? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? And that passes unanimously with those present. Congratulations. Okay, so let's go on to the next item, 7B, the South Powers Extension, the corridor study funding.
Promise it's my last one. Okay, so Catherine Wenger, PPACG. So our regional partners, including El Paso County, Fountain, Colorado Springs, CDOT, and PPACG, are looking for an opportunity to fund a Powers South Corridor study. There's been multiple meetings and discussions regarding this, and so what has come out is that we need some funding to go towards this study. This study would help preserve right-of-way, plan for limited access for the freeway standard, and provide predictability to development efforts along that area for multiple jurisdictions. And so this would be a corridor study, or a PL, which includes access management plan and continues the effort of a feasibility study that was done in 2004. The estimated cost for this plan is between $800,000 and $1 million. And that's just a rough estimate based on other plans that have occurred and similar plans that have occurred. So the partner jurisdictions that I mentioned before would like to have a possibility of using federal SDP Metro dollars. Those are funds that get allocated by our region to fund this study if they become available in the near future. And so while this project is currently listed in our long-range plan, which is required to be eligible for federal funds, it's not listed in the TIP currently, which means it doesn't have funds currently allocated to it. So the current TIP policies and procedures state that any funds that become available to the region as cost overruns, so if they come back based on project closeouts, if there's additional funds that come about, the top priority goes to projects that currently need additional money for projects that are already listed in the TIP. And so what you see in the bulleted list or the numbered list, item 1 is just that, are the priorities of the region as set by the TIP policies. This request is to let this project, just this project, compete in that pool of projects. So even though it's not currently listed, they would like to be able to request those funds if they become available. Currently, we don't have any funds that are available. It's possible that they will be coming up soon. So this isn't a request to approve funding for this. It's just a request to approve a waiver for this specific project to request money if it becomes available. And if that, I can answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, you must have done your research well. It looks like no one has any questions, and I would assume that means no concerns as well. So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion, and just a recollection, the motion does not allocate any funding to the project. It just allows this project to compete with other projects that relate to requesting cost overrun funds.
Move approval. And I make a comment, this would be a great project to use the CMAQ funds before they disappear, because we're such great air quality.
Great, thank you. Is there a second? Second. Okay, we have a second, and this second we'll take from Holly. All right, are there any last comments or questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that passes unanimously with those absent noted. And Andy, if I could maybe ask you to respond to the other Andy's comment about the CMAQ funds, what's the opportunities or possibilities there?
I'm going to call Lifeline to our transmission director because he's been more involved in the conversation.
And I did put you on the spot, so sorry about that.
Fund sources.
Your Lifeline, you could do the phone a friend. One employee in this case. Since this is the first time I've been up here, another first, John Leosatos, Transportation Planning Director. So the CMAQ funds, again, basically because we're going to go into attainment, those funds sort of back in the back room where the little guys with the green visors are on, there's a certain code that they use to put down for the different funding. That's going to go away at the end of this fiscal year. So CMAQ funds will not be available. This is why, for the TIP amendment that you approved, that Catherine had talked about, we moved all of those CMAQ funds to zero out that account onto that one project to make sure that those got spent. And we didn't leave any money on the table, in the seat cushions, or whatever analogy you want to use. So that's going to zero out our CMAQ dollars. We're going to not have any CMAQ dollars moving forward, unless, of course, something happens with Ozone, but not for MICA. We hope that doesn't happen and we don't have those CMAQ dollars in the future. But we're going to try to find dollars for it.
Okay, so my concern is we ensure that we expend all that, and this looked like a likely project since congestion on powers adds to air pollution. So it seemed like a logical fit, but we got them all spent, and that's fine.
We're going to get them all spent, and again, our thanks to Colorado Springs and Mountain Metro and CDOT to sort of, again, make sure that we look at all the numbers, look at all the eligible things, move things around so that we can zero that out, because it bothers me to lose any money anywhere at any time.
And for the record, that is one pot of money I hope we never qualify for again.
Yeah, it's what you have to do to get it. You're not making money. You're losing money.
And here on the spending of the buckets of money that we receive, I mean, if we receive those dollars, taxpayer dollars, and they are allocated to us we always want to make sure that we've got the right kind of programs and also execute as much of those funds as possible. Because otherwise, what happens, right? We return the dollars. And, yeah. And there's a couple of things that are not so good about returning the dollars. That's less investment in the community, but for the provider of those dollars, it sends them a signal that, oh, well, you know, that we gave them money, but they don't know how to spend it. So we want to make sure that we always have a clear path forward when those dollars are provided. So totally concur. Thank you. Okay. At that point, let's go on to the last item, legislative update.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Jessica McMullen, your Policy and Communications Manager, for your legislative session update. There are a few bills that are new from our last meeting, so I'm going to go over those real quick. Then I know that we have a request to change one of our positions from our last meeting from monitor to support, so you'll get an explanation of that. As well as that, I'll give you a brief what died. So, new bills that we have taken a position on. So, Senate Bill 2173 is reimbursement rates for alternative care facilities. The committee is suggesting we support this. It supports additional funding for care facilities that provide services to people with dementia or other conditions. I know it sounds like a real hard decision for us to really want to make. As you know, this will greatly impact seniors in need and the funding that their assisted living facilities have to provide them services. Senate Bill 2017 is a transportation public-private partnership reporting bill. The Legislative Committee is suggesting we support this bill. It requires HPTE to report on public-private partnerships. The bill dominant impact is that it funds a full-time employee at HPTE to provide those reports and expands who those reports currently go to. So, House Bill 2013-25 is low-emission vehicle managed lane access. This is one that we are suggesting we monitor. It gives low-emission vehicles reduced prices for toll lanes. This bill only has one sponsor on it. We're suggesting we monitor it. And then some updates on bills that have died. Senate Bill 148, the property tax exemption value adjustments, was postponed indefinitely on February 27th. The House Bill 1233, the basic life functions in public spaces, was postponed indefinitely on February 26th. The plug-in electric motor vehicle fees was postponed indefinitely February 13th, so right after our last meeting. Senate Bill 128, Generation and Transmission Cooperative Easement Broadband, was postponed indefinitely on February 18th. Vacation of roadway, Senate Bill 157, vacation of roadway by municipality or county, was also postponed indefinitely on February 18th. We have a request to change our position on House Bill 1119, which is the bill State Government Regulation of PFOS/PFOA substances. It does have local sponsors, Tony Exum, Lois Landgraf, Dennis Heisey, and Pete Lee. The current position is monitor and amend.
So I got to spend the day in Denver on this bill Monday, and thank you, CDOT, for it. I had a good drive up and I had a good drive back. Thank you so much. I think that 60 mile an hour is just lowering it 5 miles an hour. It just seems to be working. Anyways, so thank you very much. Had a good drive up and back. So House Bill 1119 is a PFOS bill. It had a lot of things added onto it that could have potentially raised water and sewer rates 250 to 400%. Those things were all stripped out of the bill. It was taken back to the original intent of the bill, almost originally how it was submitted, with a few minor amendments to it. The City of Fountain did go up and testify in support of the bill, with some of the amendments stripped out, some of the few put back in. So we are asking that PPACG support that bill because we are happy with it right now. So we believe it'll do what it needs to do.
So, we will need a motion that approves and confirms all of the positions that have been taken and changes our monitor position to support as our action from this item. And then if anyone is interested, we do also have a list of what bills are going to be heard in hearings in the near future.
Great, and at this point also, we have two co-chairs for the Legislative Committee. That's myself and Dick Elsner. And I'd like Dick to make some comments to what's been transpiring with these bills, and he may have some comments on some of them as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The legislature is roughly halfway through right now. They've got over 500 bills. I think there are over 600, but who counts? We have a very small subset of bills that we look at that impact this region. I would encourage everybody to look at some of the other bills that they might be having issues with. And, if you feel you don't like them and would like someone to go testify, you can talk to us. And, where we won't take a position for PPACG, we do have other positions that we take for other organizations. I would support the change to monitor, from monitor to support for that one bill. And I think at this point, we probably would need a motion then to accept all of our positions. You have them listed. I would encourage you to pull up your list. If you do it on your computer, it's really, really cool because you can just click on the bill and then you get the bill. So I would suggest doing that and take a look at it. We're very careful on what bills we look at as far as our legislative committee. We do make sure that they have an impact in our region with the the goals of PPACG. So again, take a look at all the bills, get engaged. Denver is doing some really bizarre things right now to us. There are a lot of bills that we don't have on here that are going to have a fiscal impact to counties and to municipalities. So be careful.
Great, and I agree with those. I'm sorry. Norm, do you have some
I'm
comments?
just prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chair, if you're ready.
Okay, just a moment. I agree with those comments, but as you all know, but perhaps for some of the folks that are not in our room on a regular basis, our position here is to vote on these, and we are interested in a unanimous vote for those present. This is to make sure that in case we have a bill here that is controversial between two different public agencies, that we don't take a position that offends somebody. But so we are looking for a unanimous position on the listing here. So what I'd like to do is open it up for any comments at this point. Does anybody have any comments or questions with the list? And the list is in the package. Most of these, except for the ones that Jessica mentioned, and for also the amended one, which is 1119, we have actually, I believe we voted on them before, so we had taken previous positions. So it's just, I think it's one new bill and one modification. Is it one new bill or is it more than one? Or actually, three new bills. Thank you. So it's one. The new ones are Senate Bill 20-173, which is at the top of the first page. And then if you go to the bottom of the second page, it's Senate Bill 20-017. And then at the top of the third page, the new one is House Bill 20-1325. So it's those three that are new that we haven't voted on before. And then changing House Bill 20-1119 from monitor to support. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sharon, on the sewer increase, you said there will be almost no increase or zero increase. Could you be more specific? Or
if an amendment that had been proposed to that bill had stayed on, that could have been that could have happened, that the increases would be that amount. But since that amendment was taken off, that isn't going to happen, and that would have had to do with how things were treated.
So it will be a zero increase on sewer charge?
Correct. That amendment was taken off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I'll probably go with, do you want to do your motion? I don't know if we need two separate motions, so I will first move that House Bill 201119 regarding the PFAS, that we move to a position of support.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I have no objection to carrying these two separately, so let's go ahead and proceed with that. Any other comments with regard to 2011-19, changing to a position of support? And hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously, so we officially have changed that position, and I'll entertain a motion for the remainder of the package.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt the recommended position on Senate Bill 20-173, 20-117, and 20-1325.
Okay, great, and those are the three new bills?
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Any last questions or comments on these or debate? And hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And those pass unanimously as well, so we have amended and changed those positions and added some new. And Dick, you have some comments?
No.
I just have a quick, would anybody like to know which bills are up in hearing in the next week or so, or would you like me to just email that out for those who may be interested?
Sounds like email. All right, thank you. All right, thank you very much, Jessica, appreciate that. We're on to the reports. 8A, military.
Mr. Chair, two items.
I'm sorry?
Two additions. 7A.
Oh, yeah, my apologies. I'm the one that asked for them, and here I am, like, trying to press through them. Okay. So let's go to the first one, then, which is 7D, and this is permission for committees to participate and vote remotely under states of emergency. So, Andy, I'll ask you to go ahead and start the conversation, but if I can make a few comments first. So we do actually, if Andy, you correct me if I say this incorrectly, our bylaws actually allow for this board to operate remotely if necessary. Is that correct?
That's correct. And you can vote remotely, but there's a disconnect where our committees can't do the same. So
Right.
that's something we want to shore up, at least as an interim measure during this state of emergency that we're in. It came up with our internal coronavirus planning team yesterday.
And in my conversation with Andy, one of the things that I feel is always important is under what conditions we would actually put this into action. So the motion includes when there is a declared state of emergency at the state. That would be when this would apply. I think we can have a conversation here about whether we want this to just simply apply for this particular pandemic temporarily. It is obvious to the PPACG team that we probably would want to make this permanent, but there's a process about review through our bylaws to allow the committees to do that. So it's probably advisable that we ask the PPACG staff to go through that process and come to the board to make a permanent change to the bylaws for any future challenges where we would want the committees to be able to vote remotely. But as an emergency measure, I think we're interested in this for what we have right now for our pandemic at present. So this just applies to this one, at least as that's how Andy and I discussed it.
Yeah, and if I could, Mr. Vice Chair,
Please.
And we have a number of meetings coming up. We have a TAC meeting next week. The week after that, we have a RAC Regional Advisory Council meeting and our Community Advisory Committee meetings. So they're coming up before the next board meeting in April. So our suggestion is to put some limits around this and just say it's with the current pandemic issue that we're dealing with, and we can come back with more systemic changes with the bylaws change at a subsequent board meeting. But there is that disconnect where somebody can call in for one of these committee meetings, but that doesn't allow us to form a quorum, and they can't vote by video or by telephone.
Okay. And the key to that, right, would be the phone call would be a sufficient process to declare a quorum, and the phone call would be a sufficient process to vote for these committees. So that would be what we would need to be voting on here. And we have some questions. Go ahead.
Well, not a question. I just say makes absolute sense to do that immediately, and then as well to change that for any declared state of emergency in any level of government. So if we have locally an issue that comes up with a declaration of an emergency, they should be able to go ahead and do that. And frankly, I think they ought to be able to do it all the time.
Well,
but that's another issue. that we can address later.
Right.
But I think adding that to the state of emergency immediately now, and let's change the bylaws for the future.
So one thing that I feel strongly about is having a trigger. There's something that specifically gets pointed to. In this particular case, we can point to a declared state of emergency at the state level, but in the future design in the bylaws, we could consider other options. That maybe it's a local declared state of emergency or something like that. So that can be part of the design as well. Yes, Dave?
I personally think it should be just in our bylaws that we allow it. I come from a rather remote area. When you look at this, and Alma and Fairplay, there are a lot of times they flat out can't get here. A couple of weeks ago, I got here, I had a meeting in Canyon City. I got to drive directly to Canyon City, and then I had to drive through Colorado Springs to get home. On Thursday, I had to drive down through Colorado Springs to get up to Fairplay for our meeting that I had to get to, and then I ended up driving through Summit County to get home. I really think that this is something that we just need to do, period, because Alma and Fairplay, they have a lot of difficulty getting here many times. And if we could have any more participation from people in that area, because they could just call in, I think that would be really good.
That was the rationale that I was suggesting, and you phrased that far more eloquently than I did. But that's why I think we ought to just do that as a regular course of event.
And Sharon, go ahead.
So we do have it in our bylaws that we can call in for meetings, and we were supposed to be changing it so that all the committees could have the same bylaw.
Yeah, so the board bylaws have permitted that for a long time, but
Right.
I don't know that we took the direction from the last change we made to apply that to all the committees for the remote participation, but we're at a point where we certainly need to do that now.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
and City of Fountain actually wrote up a tiered level program, the different tiers we're in, and they will, and one of them tells you when certain triggers happen. In Tier 3, I believe it is, a state of emergency from the governor, so reducing and that kind of thing. So I think I reached out to you earlier this week and said you can get a copy from Scott.
Yeah.
Really well-done document. At the top, it says coronavirus, but for any community, you're welcome to have it. It's very easily to be used in any type of emergency situation. We just happen to label it that for this time. But I had thought we had kind of directed the staff to take that direction to ensure that the various committees did have the ability to call in to the meetings.
Well, if I guess perhaps if we didn't get there, we're going to work towards getting there now. Tyler, yes. Go ahead.
I would suggest that we take what we have in our bylaws as the board and push that down on the committees. And it simply states that board members may participate remotely in PPACG board meetings in unusual circumstances when necessary. I think that's broad enough, but also puts the intent in there that it should not normally happen that we are all meeting in virtual meetings, and that's part of the public participation, because that's part of the restriction here.
Thank you, Tyler. Dave?
Yeah, I don't like that in certain situations or whatever. When these boards don't actually take action; they recommend. So to have more people being able to get into those committees to recommend to us, this group needs a little more restriction on when we use it and how we use it. But as far as the advisory committees, when you look at the RAC, AAA RAC, there are a lot of really old people on that committee, older than me.
And
some of those old people are younger than me. But I mean, if you take no. I mean, it is. I mean, you take a look. Bill Bowles from Park County. He's been retired a long time. He's very active. But when you start driving from Park County down to here to get to a meeting, every time it's just it can get a little wearing, and it'd be best if they could, get in on those committees.
So if I might, it sounds like we kind of have two topics going on here. The first one is about voting because of a declared emergency, to allow this to happen for our committees right away. I think maybe there's a second topic, which is about extending what we have granted to this board down to the to all the committees, and then it's a question of whether that would be under certain conditions, or it would be to what Dick is proposing, which would be just to apply all the time. So if you all are comfortable with this, let's go ahead and deal with the first issue first, and then we'll have just a little bit longer conversation on the second one. So on the first one, I'd be interested in a motion to offering permission for the committees to participate in establishing a quorum and voting remotely under the current state of emergency, and this is to deal with this particular issue. Okay, I have a motion and I have a second. Is there any further conversation, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously, so we have given you the authority, Andy, to proceed with that. And on the second point, maybe it's a little bit about direction, because we have two possible pathways here about institutionalizing this. One would be to do it maybe under certain conditions, and the other one would be to do it broadly under all scenarios, whether there's certain conditions or not. Are there any comments with respect to that? We've heard a few, but okay, go ahead, Sharon.
You finally saw my hand.
I've got the peripheral vision.
I will volunteer Holly and myself to potentially meet as a bylaws committee to look at this, and just get this really quickly done, maybe in a week or so for all the boards and for making any changes. Bring back different, we did have a discussion removing that word, unusual circumstances. When we did this previously, we can readdress that again. Anybody else that would like to come besides Holly and I, but Holly and I seem to be the bylaw people when it comes to groups.
Yep, that's payback for the last time I volunteered you, I know.
Okay, that sounds like a reasonable approach to me. There's no vote required here because we would ask the Bylaws Committee to work with the team to come up with the appropriate words, and maybe at the next meeting we would vote on that so we could institutionalize it. So any comments or questions, concerns about that, or any interest in proceeding that way? Go ahead, Norm.
I just, Norm Steenteller, I just appreciate the trigger aspect that sort of automatically applies. We don't have to take additional time-consuming steps in order to convene the board when it's a declaration of emergency. But I also like the bylaws committee to consider things like snow days. We can't function, but we can immediately, but maybe perhaps things at that level, below the level of national or state emergency, at the call of the chairman, when approved. So I just ask you to consider that aspect.
Very good. Any other comments? Okay, outstanding. All right. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One more quick one. I would also encourage, I don't have the bylaws in front of me, but I would say, I think if we're going to allow that, we need to be clear that it's just named and appointed members of the committee, that no proxies are allowed. So I would hope that that would those would be addressed. Yes.
Another great comment. Thank you. Andy?
This doesn't sound like an urgent change, so I think it should take the time to go through all of the committees and have their comments come back to us, and we should consider the options next time around and take a look.
Fair enough. I think I had mentioned maybe to bring it back for a vote next time, but I think that's a fair comment. We should give the Bylaws Committee the time they need to do it right. Let's proceed with that.
Set a deadline for Holly and I to start it, because if you don't say we'll do it within a week, then we're not going to get started. It's going to be a month down the road. So.
Good point. Yes, Norm.
Just one of the considerations for the bylaws, and probably for staff, is that where possible, I'd love to have a video conferencing capability so that people could log into a site and actually watch the slides and presentation, not just audio, where possible.
Okay. Okay, very good. I think the team got lots of direction on that one, which is good. It's excellent. So let's go now to the other item that I added, which is 7E, and that's a statement of support for the Stout family. Of course, in part of this, many of us in the local community here know what has been happening with Gannon Stout, his disappearance, and now the subsequent arrests. So we have accused personnel. And unfortunately, a fairly good understanding that Gannon will not be coming back to his family alive. But we certainly, we know the body's not been found, and we are hopeful that the body will be found and brought back to the family so that they can have closure. So what I'd like to do at this point is, Sharon, if you'd like to talk a little bit about this. There's something we're interested in doing with PPACG to honor this, and it might be a statement that we make. So go ahead, Shannon.
Thank you very much. I'm going to read the statement that I submitted to Representative Landgraf that she read at the Capitol on Monday morning. And thank you for wearing blue today. It was Gannon's favorite color in respect for him. We did have several events in the community over the weekend honoring him. There's a lot more to happen with this case. But let me just read the statement. It says, a little less than 6 weeks ago, many people in the Fountain Valley started wearing blue, whether it was clothing or little ribbons or bracelets or whatever form it took, because it was Gannon Stouch's favorite color, and we wanted to show that we cared about him and wanted him to come home safely. Now, throughout the Fountain Valley, El Paso County, and literally all over the country, we are wearing blue and lighting blue lights in honor of a precious young life lost, and in hopes that it brings some amount of comfort to his family to know that they do not mourn alone. So I'd like to just make a motion of support for this family. If the board would please approve that, then we support him and we're with him, and we're just all praying that Gannon will come home quickly. Not the way we want, but we need Gannon to come home. So that is my motion.
Second.
Okay, that is moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? And there's several different ways that we could do this, but I think, Sharon, you're really just asking for an expression of support. We could ask the staff to send a card or something like that, but some other people might not have an interest in that. But I think this motion is about just simply a formal expression of support and a vote to do that. Yes, go ahead.
I am absolutely 100% fully in support of supporting this family, however our community can. I do think that perhaps we need to be cognizant of a pending trial and the counties that could potentially be moved into, and whether this body needs to change the dynamics of where a jury pool would be. So I'm a little bit, I'm absolutely in support of a statement of support. But what we would do other than that publicly, I think we just it needs to be on our radar and cognizant of upcoming judicial impact.
That's all we're asking for, is just a verbal statement of support, yes.
Okay, great. So that is moved and seconded, a verbal statement of support. Are there any other comments? Yeah, go ahead.
Sharon, I apologize. I did not see your text. I did not wear blue, and had I definitely would have been decked in blue.
That's okay.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Norm.
I fully support the motion and would grieve personally for the family. We also want to recognize that we have many, many who die homeless, veterans. We have about twice the national suicide rate among our veteran population here. So we would not want the good to be, or the perfect to be the enemy of the good, because we have many grieving families for lots of tragedy that life happens. So fully support the motion, recognize that many who grieve.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? And seeing none, all those in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that passes unanimously as well. And we definitely express our condolences and prayers to Gannon and his family. It's such a tragedy. But I appreciate this board's willingness to express support for the family. That is really wonderful. And that's continues to be a statement about our communities, that we support our communities here, and our public agencies support our communities and do what we can to help them. So thank you very much. All right. So those are that's the end of the legislative updates. We now will move to item 8, and I appreciate all the patience of our military partners at the end of the table there for going through a somewhat longer meeting. But let's go ahead and get started with the installation reports. And who'd like to start? Okay, please.
Just a couple items for the team here today. in regards to our PFOS, PFOA issue at Peterson, we have the mitigation systems that are out there for fountains.
Excuse me. Would you say your name again and where you're from?
Craig Biondo from Peterson Air Force Base.
Thank you.
All right, so in regards to our PFOS, PFOA issue, we have mitigation systems for fountain security. Widefield and Stratmore Hills are on schedule to be up and operational by December of this year. And we are continuing our quarterly monitoring of on and off base wells. Second item, we're having a U.S. Space Force installation naming ceremony, and we're going to also unveil new signage for that on the 30th of March. This went out previously as like a renaming ceremony. We're not renaming Peterson. We're just we're renaming the Air Force Base piece to Space Force Base. So that'll be on the 30th of March. We were reaching out to the regional highway departments to request signage changes accordingly with that new name and designation. That's all I have today.
Okay, thank you very much. And with regard to the renaming ceremony, is that going to be a public event with public invites?
I'm aware of by invitation. I'm not aware of a full public invitation for that event open.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Ron Jeffrey from Schriever Air Force Base. Mr. Chairman, board members, thanks for the opportunity to provide a few updates. Some things that are going on this afternoon and tomorrow. We'll be holding our 50th Space Wing Commanders Conference to make sure that we level set everybody within our wing on where we are with the U.S. Space Force and other activities to make sure we're taking care of the mission and our people. Additionally, on Friday, we'll have our Team Schriever and 50th Space Wing Awards ceremony at the Antlers Hotel, where we'll be able to recognize our outstanding performers. Additionally, we want to thank everybody who attended the Area Chiefs of Staff meeting that was hosted out at Schriever Air Force Base for February. We had a good meeting and good discussions about what was happening at our installation and other installations in the area. Today, in addition to our Commanders Conference, we'll also be hosting a visit by the State Land Board. Some of the commissioners and staff will be there to get into an overview of operations at Schriever Air Force Base and then to review the land to the south of Schriever that is under their jurisdiction. Again, we're working to make sure that everybody understands encroachment issues as it relates to the operations there at Schriever Air Force Base. And with that, unless there's any questions, I don't have anything else to add. Certainly, there are no additional announcements that we can make at this point concerning the stand-up of U.S. Space Force, other than the renaming of installations from Air Force installations to Space Force installations. With that, nothing further from.
Thank you.
Good morning, Melissa Porter from the Air Force Academy. I just have an update on COVID-19. Yesterday, the Air Force Academy, along with local military installations, declared health force protection condition level A, which is a formal way of saying that we're taking measures to educate our base populace and our cadets on the risks and precautionary measures regarding this disease. And we're also reviewing plans to limit the communication of the disease. That said, the superintendent has also restricted all official travel outside the U.S. for the cadets and for active duty personnel for the month of March. And he has further restricted travel, personal travel for active duty personnel and cadets to CDC level 2 and below countries. We are also, right now, we're looking through our telework eligibility for our personnel, our permanent party, and taking necessary measures in preparation for this disease. That's all. That's it. Our cadets are going on spring break the 20th of March. As of right now, any scheduled travel within the United States is still permitted, but the situation, of course, is fluid, so we'll provide updates as they are available. I don't have anything else unless you have any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. And maybe just a quick follow-on, because I haven't had an opportunity to mention it before. El Paso County has an El Paso County Board of Health as well. You can go on their website and see a lot of recommendations for the community, for our citizens, and for public and private agencies in there regarding responses to coronavirus. Just in a very quick nutshell, the number one most important thing, if you're feeling ill, whether it's flu, a cold, coronavirus, whatever it is, stay home, call your doctor. Start your communication with a medical professional while you're at home, and then follow their instructions. But number one most important thing, if you're feeling ill, don't go to public places. Even if that's actually the same recommendation, even just for flu or for colds. But obviously right now it's exceptionally important that everybody try to follow that. So stay home, call your doctor, and get advice from your doctor. And they have a lot more on that website, but that's just kind of a very quick nutshell comment from them. Yes, go ahead, Sharon.
Since we're on military reports, I just want I don't know how I'm on the list for this distro list, but the VA announced safeguards to protect nursing home and spinal cord injury patients. So if you know someone in a VA nursing home, they've adopted a no visitor stance for outside visitors and to their spinal cord injuries, because they do consider that their most vulnerable population, even though it does say in here the CDC considers it a low threat to the general public. So if if you're planning on visiting someone in a VA nursing home or their spinal cord injury, you should call ahead, because you may not be allowed entrance except in special circumstances.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Let's go on to the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Should have been on deck timing the pictures.
Yeah, that's right.
It's going to take me longer to get up there than actually do the report. Because, again, the TAC had 5 items we discussed, which were the 5 items that Catherine brought you today. So you have the item in your packet. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
Just done it for my seat.
Okay. Thank you, John. Yeah, if we'd have given you the microphone, you could have stayed at your seat, right? So
You're getting your steps in, John.
let's go to the Community Advisory Committee report. Thank you.
Just like John, we saw the same action items that the board did this morning, suggested that we recommended approval, and nothing terribly controversial or ongoing.
Okay. Go ahead.
With one exception. Our current chair, Tim O'Donnell, is going to be stepping down. He did have a family emergency where his daughter passed away, and so he is having to move to New York to take care of his grandkids with his son-in-law. So
We're very sorry to hear that.
his last meeting could have been the last one, but hopefully is this one, so we can all thank him for his service on the committee. And
I didn't attend your meeting, that's probably Sharon.
I'll fix it.
I'm sure the PPACG staff will do something for him. Okay, great. Okay, great. Let's go to the Mobility Coordinating Committee.
Jolene Hausman, Chair of Mobility Coordinating Committee. First, I'd like to thank you guys for the possibility of remote call-in. I would say that's one of our biggest issues of people that live in the mountain rural towns being able to come down during adverse weather, or as the Mobility Coordination Committee, mobility issues. So that would really help us in the long run in reaching out to strengthen that committee. We did meet last month. It was a very short meeting. And we're going to focus a lot this year on provider presentations so that we can educate one another of what we all do in the community to help stop duplication of services and fill the gaps in services. And the only way we can fill those gaps is if we actually know what each other does. So we're going to open up those lines of communication. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Regional Advisory Council?
Hi, I'm Dixie Wodell, Regional Advisory Council, and we met last month, and we had a very short meeting, but very productive because we had our provider fair, and it was very educational and good bonding between our providers and our council, and really want to recognize the staff of Jody and Melissa, Lisa, and several others who organized it, because it was very well organized and it went very well, and I think it was probably one of the best ones that I've attended. Also, I received some information to share in the community about census-taking. One of the things that seniors have problems with is communicating with people who come to their door, and things that come in the mail that they are not sure about, and just don't even open their mail sometimes. And so I personally was able to get some flyers and things to hand out in where I live, out in the rural area in southeastern El Paso County, to get that information out of places where they can go to get assistance for that. And just to reiterate what others have said here today, seniors are very concerned about the virus and being out in public, and the fact that people are hoarding things from the stores. If you've been to the store lately, there are bare shelves everywhere, especially toilet paper. Who knew? But those are concerns, and I'm glad that you all have addressed the fact of meeting, and that is beneficial to our seniors. And yes, there are a lot of us old people on these committees.
Thank you.
And we're the better for it.
All right.
Thank you.
CDOT monthly update?
Okay. So I'm in the process of filling a Region 2 position that's a liaison with Innovative Mobility, or DTR. So they'll help oversee all the busing and transit stuff and make sure those projects keep moving forward. We have 19 transit projects within Region 2 from CDOT's perspective. So I need to make sure those are moving forward. Woodman is one of them, Park and Ride, things like that. So I just wanted to let you know that that's in process of filling that position. In April, May, we'll be starting US 24 East passing lanes, as well as State Highway 94 and Peyton intersection safety improvement projects. So those are awarded, and the contractor's getting ready to get going on them. US 24 West is finishing up with Hamilton construction when we're able to pave when it gets warm enough. And we'll be in, you can see at 21st, we're finishing that bridge work there too. But we do have an awarded also continuation of that project from US 24 West, where it finishes near Manitou up to Green Mountain Falls. So that's with Martin Marietta. We got the bids in and are ready to start awarding that project. So, and then the next year we'll continue on to Woodland Park. So wanted to let you know about that. State Highway 94 westbound passing lanes, we should advertise this spring or summer. That was part of the build grant stuff, but also it's part of the Senate Bill 267 money, and we have faster funds in that. In May, we're going to have the Transportation Commission tour Region 2. So they're going to come around, and so Rob Fry and Eric Richardson, who's back there, our government relations person, is helping coordinate what that tour looks like. We'll most likely have lunch in Pueblo, but have some stops here in Colorado Springs in the morning, and then come back up through Powers in the afternoon. So that's what they're looking at doing. And then there's a GAP public meeting today. So Sharon, you mentioned like the variable speed limit signs, and we're recognizing that. The CSP is going to start enforcing the speed limit by air, so through aircraft. So again, that's part of the challenge of even if you lower the speed limit, if people don't follow it, what do you do? Because there's no room to pull people over. If you do, it's going to back things up more. So there's a public meeting going out, happening today at 11, where CSP talks about how they're going to do their air enforcement for speed limits along that corridor. Again, if you want text alerts on what's going on I-25 Gap, you send a text to 21000 and say I-25 Gap in the text. So the phone number you text is 21000, 21000, and then say I-25 Gap. There's also the website if you just put in I-25 Gap project in Google, but our email address is i25gap@codot.us. So again, they'll send you emails or newsletters and keep you informed. But I like the text because if they do emergency pothole repair. And then the last news is I won't be here for the TC tour. I'm retiring at the end of the month.
Oh.
She's been threatening for a while. I have another job opportunity. They haven't announced to their people yet where I'm going, but it's out of state. So.
So you're not retiring?
I'm retiring from CDOT.
Oh, okay.
I'm retiring at the end of the month from CDOT. And then I'll be moving to another state to start a new job. Right now, my family's going to stay here, and I'll just commute back as needed. So it's just a great opportunity. So I will be sending out, what the position is and what state it's in as soon as I can. I just don't want it to get out to their employees that, before they have a chance to announce it. So I'm going through the background check now and that kind of thing. So.
How about a send-us
DOT Director of Kansas.
Well, I know I can speak.
He's joking.
I know I can speak for myself and perhaps also several others, but we're really going to miss you. I mean, it's been great working with you, and I am so sorry to see you go. But, it sounds to me like it's onward and upward,
yes,
which is excellent.
Yeah.
I would say that would be well-deserved. Now, we all need to know when and where the going-away party is going to be.
Okay.
Right?
I'll see when that's going to be.
Right.
Yeah, I'll have some gap between starting the new job. I think I'm starting April 20th, and then retiring from CDOT at the end of the month. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure serving all of you and being part of this group and being part of the Region 2 team. I will miss it. I kind of toggle between tears and excitement, for the new opportunity. And so, but like I said, you guys are still here. I'll still keep in touch and let you know what's going on. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service to our community. That's great.
Karen, I think it says a lot for your leadership and your relationships here when a whole group of elected officials go, oh, when you announce your retirement.
That's right. Okay, thank you. Stack report.
Thank you. Norm Steen, Teller County, your stack rep, and I have to tell you, we talked about the number of alternates that Pikes Peak Area Council governments. Here you have 8 alternates serving Pikes Peak Area Council governments to stack, and some other regions across the state have 1 or 2 who can sometimes not get there. So I want to let you know that this whole group is avid about transportation support. A couple updates. Stack meetings, is about 3 hours, so we always try to give this in about 30 seconds or a minute. 73 pages of report. You want to focus on just one topic today, and that's the one of the items on the agenda was the statewide plan update. And specifically this month, we talked about the development list, which is so there's 10 years list of projects. We know that the first 4 years are the funded portion. That's the tip we talked about today. We amended that with number 13. But the years 5 through 10 are now transformed into the statewide pipeline of projects, a little more outcome-based rather than a description on a spreadsheet, statewide pipeline of projects. A couple of these projects are approved by the Transportation Commission, 6 guiding principles and criteria we talked about, and how these are integrated close with the statewide plan. We'll talk about a couple of them that affect our Pikes Peak Region 2 And of course, Region 2 includes not only the Pikes Peak region, but also the Central Front Range. Some of the principles are, background review, that 75% of the total projects are going to be urban and interstate mix of projects, and 25% are rural, non-interstate. That's an important distinction. Urban, non-interstate projects. The two projects from the, this is just a summary, it's a quite body of list, but two of them that are in the Pikes Peak, maybe just one that I have on my list here, is the State Highway 21 and Airport Road, the DDI, Diversion Time and Interchange, is on the statewide development list. That's State Highway 21, I think Oak Ranch Road, is that right? Charter Oak, right. Lots of information. So we also give a report from the Pikes Peak region to the statewide group. So if there's ever an issue, just remind the board, if there's ever an issue you'd like us to carry to the STAC meeting, please let us carry that water for you. A couple other points. This coming Friday, our next STAC meeting will be done virtually by phone only, in line with the governor's declaration of emergency. Will be by phone only. If you have a package, you can follow along the slides as well as audio. A couple of I have the microphone. Since we last talked, there are a couple of groups, including Colorado Counties, Inc., that has circulated a statewide letter for funding support. The funding letter outlines a couple of principles for which Colorado Counties would support and provide legislative cover for legislators for funding support in two areas. One is a general fund allocation, a standing general fund allocation to transportation. There are many around the state that are opposed to that, believing that funding should only be granted if it's new funding. CCI, as a body, almost unanimously agreed, and this is quite a step, that general fund should be allocated to statewide long-term funding so that organizations like CDOT can depend year to year to year. We don't have to go from a 267 to a Senate Bill 1 to 267 to other funding, kind of lily pad approach. We can kind of long-term funding. The second component was that fees should be a component. Now, I know that many in this region are opposed to fees because they can be viewed as an end around a vote. This was another controversial thing. We kind of moved to middle ground, is that we believe that with three denials in a public process of Initiative 109, 110, and now most recently CC, that legislature and the governor must move forward with an internal approach to transportation funding. I totally get it. I mean, I totally get the public input. But we also agree that it needs to be a pay-as-you-go. If you have benefit of a service, you should pay for that service. Everybody, I think, universally would agree with that principle. So this move towards a fee-based, also providing some legislative cover that we as commissioners statewide, and I'm speaking now for CCI, not PPACG, a little off, but we agree to provide legislative cover for our legislators who move forward with those two aspects. The dollar figure we're looking for and advocating for is $500 million annually. That was the figure that you'll see throughout CDOT documents, and we'd like to see that supported long term. The other legislative issue is, with the help of John Leosato, some support, and also CDOT, Eric Richardson, I think, maybe he's still here. We developed a national resolution for support of public-private partnerships on federal rest areas. There's no commercial activity permitted by law, I don't believe, John, on any rest area constructed after 1960, 60 years ago. Now, that means the East Coast federal rest areas have services. Out in the West here, zero, nada. This resolution, which was adopted almost unanimously, and I carried this personally to the NACO Legislative Committee, it was adopted almost unanimously, to permit P3s on federal rest areas nationwide. That's now going to the NACO Board of Directors for for review, a legal review, and then if that passes that legal review, it'll go on to, and I'll personally carry it again to the National Association of Counties annual meeting in Orlando in July. So this would permit such things as electric vehicle charging stations, broadband Wi-Fi services on federal rest areas, truck parking with heating and air conditioning hookups, so we don't have to have trucks idling in our rest areas. Lots of commercial activities that would be beneficial to our traveling public and improve safety. So that's a quick update. Glad to take any questions.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to say, because of Norm's efforts in transportation, the House Speaker, Casey Becker, is going to be meeting with CCI this coming Thursday to talk about the letter that CCI had written, and hopefully maybe we can start pushing it along.
We got, the day after that letter, or actually a few days before it went out, because it had already been circulating water cooler talk statewide, the Speaker got wind of the letter, had a copy on her desk, a circulating staffing copy, and she called CCI, and we had some, I wasn't personally involved in the conversation. I'll just, well put, Commissioner. Well put. So we have moved the discussion into the Assembly leadership. And as you mentioned, we'll have Casey Becker at our Transportation Commission, Transportation Steering Committee meeting at CCI tomorrow, which I'll chair. So she'll be our Thursday. What's today? It is tomorrow. It is tomorrow. Statewide CCI meeting, and Casey Becker will be our guest speaker, and we hope to also get a leader. Help me, the name of our House Minority Leader.
Senator Holbert?
Yes, Chris Holbert. Thank you. Also attend. So hopefully we're moving this into the conversation for statewide funding.
So it's my understanding that the Speaker and Senator Holbert are trying to work out a compromise. I don't know if that will succeed or not.
That's correct. Yeah. Well, I should also say the governor is also part of this conversation.
Okay.
So there's differences of opinion on how we ought to proceed, but everybody agrees we need to proceed. We need to move it off the ball. We need to move towards long-term, predictable, statutory funding of roads. I've mentioned it in an open meeting, it's like having children and deciding not to feed them. That is not an option. So,
all right.
That's all I have.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll keep mine quick, and I'll keep this as my member entity update too. I'm trying to get a date. Representative Larry Liston is holding a town hall with some innovative ideas on transportation as well, but that might be canceled, given it was at a senior center. So we'll wait, and if I find out about it, I'll shoot it over to Andy.
Mr. Chair,
yes,
just real
go ahead.
quickly, back to the stack report. The pipeline of projects that Commissioner Steen had been talking about, that is the list that Shane had brought to you earlier. So that is that you gave us the draft list. That is what's with CDOT now. But again, what Shane's going to bring you next month will be adopted in. So your actions will feed into that pipeline. We're not putting anything in that pipeline that you haven't seen and that you all have not adopted. I just want to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, well put. That's what we've seen the last couple of years is really a closer integration. I appreciate John and others working in that coordination for integrating MPOs, not only statutory to tip into the STIP, but also the guidance, the recommendations, the advice, statewide transportation advisory council. The advisory piece is taken very seriously. So, well put.
And my understanding on the compromise that they may be working, I mean, some of us are interested in ensuring that we have sustained regular funding out of the general fund. That's possibly a piece of the compromise. Another piece is indexing the gas tax, maybe from this point going forward, tied to inflation, because right now it isn't, so it just stays static, and over time it becomes less and less of a valuable budget line item. And then if we do talk about use of roads and highways and everybody has to pay in, there's ultimately going to need to be something where electric vehicles pay into that as well, because right now they're not.
Yes.
And as they becoming there becomes an increasing number of those in our communities, they're going to need to be part of how to do that. Of course, it's challenging on how to get there because they won't contribute to a gas tax, so there needs to be an alternative approach. But it's my understanding these three items possibly are a piece of this compromise that might go forward. Go ahead, Sharon.
So Representative Landgraf is actually having a town hall meeting Saturday in Fountain at the Fountain Library at 10 a.m. And the subject of the town hall meeting is there's talk of a gas tax increase at the Capitol. What are your thoughts? What are your ideas? You know, there's no agenda. There's no anything. Just bring me your ideas. What do you think about it? So if you would like to email her your concerns and comments on that before the meeting, we can get those included. But otherwise, come on down to Fountain Library at 10 a.m. And that'll be the discussion of that town hall meeting.
Great. Well, thank you. Anything else?
I would just make one of the comment that we've made over and over again to STAC is that CDOT has one public affairs officer. Counties have 64. Cities have another several hundred cities across. So if these views that are proposed, if you support transportation funding, if you support the principles that we've talked about, use your local podium. Use a podium like PPACG, your local county commissioner board meetings, your city council meetings, to advocate for transportation funding. If this is important to you and your constituents, carry the message to your local communities.
Thank you. Okay, we have Executive Director report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of items real quick. Following on the transportation discussion, one thing to keep in mind, oil prices have absolutely plummeted and fuel prices at the pump, so now's the time to do something with the gas tax. So just an observation. One more thing on the transportation front, and I'll send this out in an email, but John and I have been working with the El Pomar Foundation for a transportation panel discussion. It's going to be public health care permitting Thursday, April 16th from 5 to 7 p.m. roughly. And it's going to talk about kind of the state of transportation in the region and some of the challenges we're facing from a funding standpoint. So, and Commissioner Halter will be there as well on the panel discussion. So we'll send out some additional information, and hopefully everybody can attend that. Oh, you are as well, right? Yes. Okay. Super. Shifting gears, back on coronavirus, just real briefly. Obviously, we've got a lot of public meetings in this space, and we did a lot of cleaning in here before the meeting today. But a lot of public meetings, a lot of committee meetings. We also have a lot of senior population that comes into our building. So just a lot of concerns about the public health issues around coronavirus. So I'll keep you posted as far as operational changes we may be looking at. One thing I should have mentioned at the beginning of the meeting is we're encouraging folks to make sure they sign up on the sign-in sheet up front, and especially put down contact information. We have everybody's contact info for the folks around the table, but folks in the audience, make sure that we have your good contact information in case we need to follow up and get in touch with people in case somebody was exposed to coronavirus, so we can get back in touch with people. But we'll keep the board and others advised of operational changes that we may have to make moving forward. One thing I'll mention that isn't directly related to that, but another change that we're going to be making over the next several weeks is a change to our front public entrance. This has been our primary entrance for a long time, but we also have access on our second floor out on 7th Street. We're going to close off the entrance to 7th Street, and we're doing that for a variety of reasons. It's something that came up in our safety assessment that we've been doing over the past couple of years. The feeling is that we're kind of a really open entity and a lot different than other public agencies. So given that consideration and also the retirement last year of our receptionist, Rima, who was stationed up front, it kind of gave us an opportunity to think about how we want to have access to the building and how we're going to handle visitors that come into PPACG. So probably at the next meeting, you'll notice that this is going to be our main and only public entrance, and we'll have a staff person here that checks people in and checks people back out. It's not going to be onerous, but a little bit tighter than what we've had in the past. So just wanted the board members to be aware of that. And then finally, I'll mention, obviously we're going to really, really miss Karen. She's been an awesome partner and a great leader here in Region 2. And we just appreciate all the support and partnering, since I've been here the past 2 years, and I think I speak for John and our transportation staff as well. But she's built an awesome team here in Region 2. I know they'll be strong going forward, but we're just really going to miss Karen, and thank you for all your support. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I know we're really pushing for time here, but do we have any announcements? I just have one to make, but I'll go around, and we'll start with Trustee. Oh, okay.
Just real quick, we combined, the county and city of Colorado Springs, our emergency ops center a year ago, and last Friday we opened up the new facility. So several of us were there. It was good presentation. We were able to walk through the facility, and the crowd is, given the current situation, is very timely. But the enthusiasm and energy that's going on in there was quite contagious.
No pun intended. Norm?
We've been focusing in Teller County on the COVID response. Actually, we've had a lot of, from the hospital commanders, directors to public health, just kind of all hands on deck. 0 cases in Teller County, even none presented. But that's been our major effort, and no specific updates. Thank you.
Turner, anything?
I have some wonderful news for everyone, by the way. I know you're always up for good news.
You're on.
You're on.
This will be my last meeting here. After 17 years on the board at Rayma, I'm stepping away, leaving it in good hands. They've got capable people on the board out there, as you all do here. I absolutely appreciate the dedication, hard work that all of you around this table put in. The endless time, and our military included, keeping us safe every waking hour of the day. It means a lot to me. And I know the staff are included in this. I really appreciate all that you do.
Wow. If anybody else decides to leave, we're going to be needing a group going away party or something like that, right? So, Turner, once again, thank you again for your service to the community. You represented the town of Rayma very, very well. I haven't known you as long as the 17 years that you served, but the 3 years that I have known you, you've represented them just fantastically. I know we've worked together in partnerships, gotten some money out into Rayma to do a couple of projects out there, and thank you very, very much for your service. I hope we get to continue to see you around, though.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Sharon? Okay, just one last thing. First of all, thank you, everybody, for a really great meeting. We actually went through a lot of material today, ran a little bit long, but one last thing. Don't forget about the census, right? The next time we meet, the census will have started. So it's very important that we do everything we can to get everybody counted, and that's the key theme. Get everybody counted. We were 7% under on the last census, and that cost us a lot of application of federal money. If we have the same 7% shortfall this census, because of the increased population and the increased per person federal contribution to our community, I think, if I understand correctly, would be about $1 billion in losses for our community, about $100 million a year that we would lose at a 7% shortfall. So we want to make sure that we do much more than that and get everybody counted. There's a huge team working on that. We even have a team going into homeless shelters. But keep in mind, if you are on a military base, even if you are a citizen of another state, if you belong to Peterson or Carson, you get counted here. So we need all of the folks on the military posts and bases counted. If you are a college student, Colorado College, UCCS, or what have you, even if you're a resident of another state, you get counted here. So let's make sure that we continuously talk to people and get them counted in the right place. Let's not undercount. Thank you very much. This adjourns this meeting. Yeah, I don't know how we do this because This is, it says Chair.